welcome everyone, and thank you for making the time to join us tonight. I guess we really would have liked to have been seeing you in person, but unfortunately our ongoing, what I call COVID chaos, has left us with an online event. So we do hope that this time next year we will actually be seeing you face to face. We'll have the next slide. Thanks, Prue. So we anticipate tonight will be online until about 8:40, 8:45. Our chairman, Brad Griffiths, will chair this evening. Our theme for tonight is safety, and we're pleased to have Kirby from Safe Ag Systems with us. Followed by that, Lars from KRONE, one of AFIA's gold sponsors, is going to talk us through one of KRONE's pieces of machinery. We'll then hand over to two of our members to tell us what the season's looking like at their end. Have a short Q&A, and we'll wrap up. So next slide. Thanks, Prue. We'll run for about 100 minutes. We would be grateful if people have questions, just try and be as succinct as possible. I should also let you know that this meeting is being recorded and has been recorded since 7 o'clock. So we will be putting a link up on our website after the event for those who've missed it. Most of you, I think, now have been placed on mute by Prue, the organiser. And so when you have a question, we'll just make sure you come off mute. Thanks, Prue. You should all see a little control bar on your screen. So I know we've got some cameras off. That's fine, but it would be great if you ask a question, if you might turn your camera on so that we can see you. You can see the mute button there. When we get to question time, you can decide whether you want to try and use the controller or physically wave at us, and we will do our best to find you on our screen and direct the question to you. Thanks, Prue. When the chairman comes to you, or it may be Prue or Pip or I, because we have got quite a few online, just take yourself off mute. It'd be great if you'd introduce yourself by telling us who you are and where you're from, and then ask your question. And if we don't get through all the questions tonight, we will try and endeavour to facilitate these offline. Thanks, Prue. And I'll hand over to our chair, Brad Griffiths, to introduce our first speaker.
Thanks, Paula, and thanks everyone for making the time to join AFIA tonight, and hopefully we all get something out of it. So our first speaker is Kirby. She's from Safe Ag Systems, who is a partner of AFIA now, and safety is, I suppose, one of the key topics around farming these days. So without further ado, I'll hand straight over to Kirby. Thanks.
Hello, I've just unmuted. Everyone can hear? Yes. It's Kirby. Yeah. Prue, are you able to hand over control so I can share some screens?
Yes.
Or if you've got the screens, I'm happy for you to push through.
I thought you would have had access because we set that up previously, that presenters had access. Anyway, let me...
I think if you just stop sharing, Prue, then Kirby will be able to put her slides up.
Okay.
In the meantime, Kirby from Safe Ag Systems, as Brad just mentioned, I'm from Donald in Victoria and enduring this latest lockdown as well. It's quite an interesting time at the moment, isn't it? It's not letting me share. It says only meeting organisers and presenters. And it says only Prue, you're a presenter.
Okay, so I've actually got your presentation up right now.
Yep, I'm happy for you to share it.
Okay.
And I'm more than happy to, as we're going through this, because I'm going to speak to you about being safe on the farm, having a safety plan on the farm and the staff on your farm and what deems a staff member on your farm. So I'm more than happy for you guys to pipe up at any time if you have a question. I understand there is a little bit of question time available towards the end, but during this, I'm more than happy if you've got something pressing that you would like to ask as well.
Is that up now, Kirby?
Don't believe so.
No, sorry. Oh, it's coming
Oh,
now.
Yep, we're on. We're cooking. You can skip on. You can skip on to the next page there, Prue. Great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with stats for you for Stats in Ag. I'm also going to talk through people, risk management, traffic management, emergency management, and the last one I think we have to talk about is COVID safety on the farm. So to kick off, this is where we've got our stats in agriculture. So we're always a couple of steps behind when it comes to statistics. So it's a pretty scary figure when you're looking at ag. We've got the comparison numbers there for mining, just to give a little bit of a glimpse. But one thing I want to talk about here when we're looking at the 3,565 claims, serious claims in agriculture, I know for a fact that personally, I've had injury claims that we've not put through and we've just paid for our staff member to have time off or to get the problem fixed. So I know that this number here that is really, really huge is probably very under-reported. So I would, in my mind, imagine this number to be much more around the 5,000 or 6,000, which is just horrific when you think about what a serious injury claim is, and that is that it deems someone to be off work for longer than a week. Okay, so it's really good to have a look at this and to compare it to something. So we're comparing these stats all to the mining industry. The next one is we equate for 2.6% of the workforce in Australia, but we have 17.2% of incidences. So if we look at mining, that's back at 10.5. So we've got a bit of room there to make massive improvement, and it can really easily be done with a little bit of a culture change on farm and really starting to talk about safety. The next one here is the terrible one. It's the fatalities, and we were at 30 fatalities, which was compared to mining at 7. So this is something that we need to really change. It can be fixed, we can make movement forward, but it's something that we all need to do together, and that peer pressure with everyone around making those changes will change these stats. So let's go to the next one, Prue. There's too many P's in this company. There's too many P's. So this is where I want to talk about how farming can be dangerous. So I need everyone to think about, we're working with chemicals and machinery and livestock. These are all things that can be really quite difficult to work safely with, and you need to have processes in place in order to make sure that happens. The other side of it is we're working in interesting conditions. So someone like me in my office sitting here now, I know that realistically when I rock up in the morning at 8 o'clock, I've got conditions that are very much going to be similar throughout the whole day. Whereas when we're farming, we could get up and have the most amazing pea super and have gorgeous sunny afternoons and then hail moment, well, especially in Victoria, this is the weather we have here. But you can have all these crazy weather conditions that you can't actually plan and say that, that activity at 9 o'clock I can do safely, but then at 4 o'clock I can do safely again, because our conditions are completely different and constantly changing. The other side of that is we're often working alone and in remote areas. So we need to have plans in place to make sure that we're counteracting that someone knows where we are, that there's a time that you're expected back, those sorts of things. The other one is, and I'm sorry if I offend anyone in the room, but the stats show it, over 55s and men. It seems to be a problem group in farming, and 9 times out of 10, it's because our reaction times aren't what they used to be. I know I'm not quite 40 and my reaction times aren't quite what they used to be. So I know by the time I get to 55, I'll be exactly the same. We'll be sitting around and saying, gee, I can't actually climb that ladder as quickly as I could when I was 21, or getting up that machine takes a little bit more time and a little bit more caution. So we need to make sure that we're adapting to our abilities, and maybe just owning that as well. The other thing is we bring in inexperienced casuals to the farm, and we do that because we need to. But we need to also make sure that we treat these casuals, whether they be a gap year student or someone from overseas, we need to treat them almost like they're an alien walking around the farm, that they've never been on a farm before, because we don't know. Maybe they haven't. And so what we trust as common sense isn't always common sense for them. So if we flick over to the next one, Prue. This is where I'm going to talk to you about people. So we can skip through here, because people on the farm, if you go to the next page, Prue, we have many, many different kinds of people on the farm. This is one thing that we need to understand, and I'm going to actually quote this. An employer is responsible for the health and safety of everyone on farm. This counts for, so this is where I'm going to start. I'm going to say, we've got mum and dad on the farm, we've got kids, we're likely got grandparents on the farm. We then have potential contractors. We might have team members on the farm. We might have Uncle Joe, who comes and helps occasionally, and we have the neighbour that helps out occasionally also as well. Anybody on the farm is included as a worker, whether they're paid or unpaid. If they're perceived to be doing a task on the farm that is work, they're deemed a worker. So that even could be down to the 15-year-old kid who's come home from boarding school and is helping out on the school holidays, or the kids that are at home on lockdown at the moment doing additional tasks on the farm. Like, we're guilty. Our kids went out and did the weaning the other day. So we need to make sure that we're looking after them to a certain standard. Can we flick to the next one, Prue? Is there any questions yet? No? I'll keep going. So this is where we have a duty of care to anyone on the farm. So I've picked out contractors, for instance, because I know a lot of people bring in contractors to the business. So we need to make sure that you're inducting your contractors, but this includes your workers and it includes anyone that's doing stuff on the farm. They should be being inducted. But like I said, I've picked out contractors for this one. So things that you need to cover in an induction are the site entries, the amenities. They need to know where emergency first aid kits, where fire extinguishers are, where the toilet is, where the kitchen is, for instance. You need to have business policies available to these people so that they know the rules of your farm. You also need to have safety procedures in place. So this is where you might have heard about your safe work procedures before. This is where you teach people on your property the safe way to operate your equipment, okay? The next thing here is emergency response plans. So most farmers have great emergency response plans, and that might be around a fire because that's something that's very common to us. But you need to have plans in place and you need to be able to run a drill on them to demonstrate how you would do this. So if we can skip to the next one, Prue. This is where we can induct workers, and I'm now talking about seasonal and casual workers. So things that we need to be aware when we're having these discussions are safety awareness. So having those discussions with the team about your standards of safety, having hazards available. So this might be a map, it might be a list, it could be whatever it is that you're comfortable with. But you need to have hazards that are known on your farm and you need to have them noted down so that you can share them with people coming to your business. The next one is PPE and where it can be found. Oh, we've gone there. Where it can be found, because that's another thing. Most businesses do have PPE available. It's just that it's in an obscure location that, you know, only you might know. So making sure that others know where that is as well. The next is machinery safety and manual handling type things. The emergency response plan, which I spoke just about before, first aid kits, contacts, so your next of kins. If something was to go wrong, you want to know your seasonal workers and your casual workers next of kin. You need to be able to call in those situations. And the last thing is how do your people that you're bringing onto farm report hazards to you or near misses or incidents. So you need to have all of this in place so that you can do the right thing moving forward and meet your legislative requirements. Next one, please, Prue. Risk management. So we'll skip next to the next one here. So this is where we do SAFE. So I try to keep it super simple here. So it's S, we're seeing it. Identify the hazard and think about what can go wrong. A, assess it. Think about what harm could be done and how serious it might be. F, fix it. Put those controls in place to either eliminate, and if we can't eliminate, just reduce the risk to as minimal as possible. E is evaluate it. Did the controls work? Those, you know, fix it measures. Did they make a positive change in safety? Were you happy? And did you need to readdress it? So it mightn't have got the outcome you wanted and you might have to readdress it. So let's skip to the next one there. But I do like that one. Keep it safe, guys. And now this is the importance of a risk assessment. So a risk assessment is just formalising what we're doing with the SAFE. Okay, and it's having a record to say that you are doing it. Now we've got a free tool on our website that you can use. So jump on and have a play with it. Let's jump into the next one, Prue. So this is where we've got traffic management. You can click again. In particular, when we're talking about hay, I'll just bring that one up, is we really need to, when we've got big sheds, big things that we're moving, telehandlers that are really quite substantial themselves, we need to have a traffic management plan, especially for those areas where there is traffic moving around and it can be a hazard. So this is a really good case of looking at our hazards, trying to eliminate them. So moving forward, we would say, okay, the hay shed is a hazard, but how am I going to eliminate that risk? So what I'm going, or minimise that risk, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a map and I'm going to draw the traffic flow so that I've got trucks coming in or telehandlers driving around, forklifts, whatever it is. You can have a traffic flow that everyone is aware of. My recommendation is also having a loading zone, that when there's vehicles moving in that loading zone, there is to be no pedestrians whatsoever. So try and keep it really simple. Make sure that you have a spotter available. Make sure that truck drivers aren't getting in and out of their vehicles willy-nilly. Give them instructions. It's your farm, it's your business, so therefore it's your rules. Okay, next, go on to the next one, please, Prue. This is where we'll tackle emergency management. I've taken up a fair bit of time here, so I'll spin through this one a bit quickly. Click on to the next one there. So we're just going to tackle what kinds of emergencies you should be preparing for. So obviously, being country people, we've got the fire and the bushfire one down. Most people would have a flood situation. If they know they're in a flood zone, they would have that sorted already. Chemical spills and exposures is something that not everyone has a plan for. So that's something that you could actively go and work around. The next one is the animal, plant, and we could even add in COVID in here. Have a plan for these situations and how you're going to manage it. So you need to make sure you've got all of this sorted The other one was extreme, storm, or your medical emergency. So I would say most people would have a medical emergency under wraps, but just maybe have a look at those chemical spills and plant animal disease and extreme storms. I think it might be something that everyone could actually take a bit of homework from tonight and have a plan in place in those scenarios. Let's skip on to the next one. What do your workers need to know in a fire emergency? So this is something that I would imagine you've got a good handle on, but my recommendation here is run a drill. So when you're bringing in that seasonal influx during harvest, go and run a drill. Don't be afraid to say, do you know what, this morning I want everyone here at this time. We're going to have a 10-minute fire drill. I want everyone to know what needs to be done, who needs to make the phone calls, who's towing this cart and who's doing that and how do you turn it on. Make sure that the whole team know what they're doing in the case of an emergency. You do not want everyone standing around looking at someone else to start taking action. You want everyone to know their role. So let's jump into the next slide there, Prue. The next one here is in a fire paddock, have you considered these things? So the prepping of the machinery, something I hear quite often is, yeah, we've got that trailer, but it's actually not with us, it's back at the farm. Or do you know what, we haven't turned it on in 6 months, so maybe we should give it a go before fire season hits. The other ones are obviously checking your conditions. I hope I'm not telling anyone here about the hotspots or clean downs. I imagine that you would all be quite across that. Making sure the fire equipment's on hand, like I just mentioned. And what have we got there? With preparation, you might avoid a breakout of a fire. So always be prepared when it comes to this, because you could have a spot fire and have it actually put out really quickly without having anyone else called out if you're well prepared. So let's go through to the next slide there, Prue. This is COVID safe, so we might just rush through this one here. We'll cover some key points. You can go with the slide there, Prue. Okay, so pretty basic stuff. I think we're all across it after the last 18 months here, but we've got checking that workers are not coming to work unwell, contactless delivery where possible, communication over the phone or radio rather than in person. If we can avoid that in-person contact, it's one less person on our list that has to be notified if something goes wrong. The other one is avoiding close contact in vehicles. We understand that getting two blokes in a ute and moving things around sometimes absolutely needs to be happening. So when that does happen, just make sure the windows are down. Make sure you've got ventilation. You're not trapped up in a small cabin together. So let's go to the next one. So here, I don't know if everyone has a continuity plan when it comes to COVID safety, but what happens if you get COVID? Okay, so I think it's a really good thinking point to sit back and say, right, if I get COVID, how are we going to manage this? If someone brings COVID onto my farm or into my business, how are we going to manage that? Who's going to notify the workers? And the other thing is, how will you manage a suspected case during work hours? So do you have a plan? Do you know that everyone's going to be sent home, that there'll need to be additional cleaning brought in? Have a think about how you would handle that as a business and make sure that everyone knows that within the team. And the other thing I say is every single state has different regulations, as we've all learnt during COVID, that the states basically run themselves. So make sure that you're checking with your individual state as to what you should and should not be doing. Because I know we have to wear masks, or we're meant to be wearing masks on farm in Victoria. So I don't know if that's something every state should be doing, but you know, check your local laws around that. So let's jump into the next one. COVID and mental health. So this is another one here. Mental health goes hand in hand with all of the safety stuff we have talked about. So it's becoming more and more apparent that psychological safety and workplace safety is just holding hands the whole way. So we need to also make sure that we are looking after our team, our family members, our neighbours, our colleagues when it comes to mental health. So always think back to safe. The other suggestion I have is during COVID, is it essential that we have a visitor on the farm? You know, if you've got someone coming out, for instance, from Melbourne or Sydney or something like that, is it really essential that they're on farm? Can they do it virtually? If they can, always go with the virtual option. And the other one is keeping everyone safe on farm. So I'll leave it there, but I just want everyone to know that if this is just a bit over the top and you're like, holy hell, how can I do all of this? I want you all to know that Safe Ag Systems is here to help. We have staff who are dedicated client services. So please, if you need assistance with this, just reach out. But now I believe it's question time. You can skip through that.
Keep going.
Everyone's very quiet.
Thanks, Kirby. Everyone seems to be on mute. Does anyone have any questions? So you can be technologically fancy and use the little hand up, or you can wave your hand and we should be able to.
Oh, you can skip through that. No questions. Did I bore you all that much?
One question. Can you hear me again? Yeah.
Is that John? Yeah, I think I've got a square. Is that right?
It's Gary Burton. One question. This meeting the requirements here, are these set up to cover all work health safety legal requirements as well? So if we meet what you're saying here, then that covers us from a legal perspective as well. Is that right?
I think what I got from there is you're asking if it covers work health and safety legislation.
Correct, yes.
Yep, I'm just checking because I can't hear 100%. Yes. So when you have an active safety system in place and it is active, it's being used, you've got the ability to be able to prove that you are being proactive in safety. And this is something here within our system. You've got a suite of templates that are available. You've got policies, inductions, procedures, checklists. You can put all of this together and you can have your team and your family members collating information on an ongoing basis to prove that you're being proactive. Does that answer the question there for you?
Yes, it does, because it's the point really is to make sure that we're covered from if we get audited by work health safety after an event, that we've done everything we can do effectively.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if something was to go wrong, we've got a reporting section within our system so that you can bring that WorkSafe person into your office and you can say, come and have a look at what we've been doing, and you can print out report after report to hand to them so that they can go and analyse that.
That's good, thank you.
No worries. I feel like I've scared everyone away.
Kirby.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello.
Kirby, do you want to just briefly mention like what you offer a service where I know personally where you help dairy farmers, so you do go on farm and help people with these systems and setting them up? Is that just something you can briefly mention?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have part of our service is client services. So we are not software where we hand over a software product and walk away. We are absolutely software with a service. So Pip's talking about a particular initiative that we have with a particular organisation in dairy where we're very hands-on in making sure that everyone's up to scratch. And like this morning, I actually even recorded a video of how to use our app, just so that, because we had clients saying, oh, our workers don't actually know how to use the app. We've bought this product. And the dairy group turned around and said to me, well, can you just do something where it's like a video where they can just watch it and they can watch what you're doing and listen to what you're doing. So that was something I did this morning for a dairy group, because they wanted to make sure that everyone was getting the same message. So they said a quick recording would be great, because we can then just email it to all of our employees. And then we don't have to worry too much about it. They're all getting the exact same message. But we are very hands-on in the implementation period. And this has started since COVID, because we haven't been able to get out to farms as regularly as we were. We're now doing this 8-week implementation period where you have an hour with someone from our office who takes you through step by step to make sure that you are meeting the requirements. And that depends on your needs and wants. We've had some people say, look, we really need additional help, and there's always phone service available. There's always internet service available at no additional charge. There's only a charge if we come out to farm and you require us out there.
Thanks, Kirby. That's great.
No worries.
We've got another question online, and I've got a farm name but not a person name. So we've only got one other question if you'd like to go forward. That's it, you're off mute. Welcome.
No, still on mute, Paula.
Is it M? I'm going to say it wrong.
Farms, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'll say it wrong.
Sorry.
Endavale Farms.
Endavale Farms. Go for it. Ask your question.
You're on mute at the moment, so you have to unmute.
Oh.
They came off mute, but they've gone back on again. Oops, you're off mute now.
All right. I won't touch the computer again. So we've got the whole team here doing a group event, a bit of group bonding over safety. And the question that I had, Kirby, was if you could just say, for a start, where are your best, where are you going to get the best bang for your buck, I suppose, starting and to implement a safety program in your business? Because I know there's, so many different elements, but if you say, 4 to 6 aspects to start on.
My recommendation is always start. Don't sit back and think, oh, this is a bit challenging, I'm not going to do anything at all. Start something. Start with inducting your workers. Make sure that you have that completed and that you've got proof of that. The next thing I would say is machinery maintenance and proof of structure and plant, that you are doing and keeping maintenance logs. That is a really another key area. The next one would be in your chemicals, making sure that you have safety data sheets available to everybody at all times. Another key one would be safe work procedures, ensuring that your team has access to and knows how to operate machinery and equipment safely. I know that we all have machines that sometimes you've got to stand on one foot, cross your R's and stick out your tongue to get going. Make sure you have all that documented. Try and make it so that you're getting your brain out and onto a document so that your team can read and understand that. But I want to congratulate you for having a bit of a safety bonding moment. I think that's awesome.
The only concerning point about that, Kirby, is I thought that I heard a can of beer opening at the same time, so I'm hoping that that was open safely with everybody there.
That's okay. It's after hours and we're bonding.
Sorry, very slow responses on my computer this morning. Oh no, this evening. I don't know what you can see, but yeah. Oh no, you can't see anything. Got a message.
It looks like there's. Oh no, no, we're good.
Do we have any other questions?
No, I think that just keeps coming up.
Okay, well, if we don't, we're happy to take questions afterwards. Any of us, if you want to email us or give us a buzz, email us tonight, give us a buzz in the morning, and we can try and facilitate some further questions and answers for Kirby. But thanks, Kirby, for joining us tonight and getting us started on the safety journey.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.
We're now going to hand over to Lars from KRONE. Welcome, Lars. I can't see you, but I know you're there somewhere.
Can you see Lars's presentation?
No, we can still see the AFIA one.
Oh, see,
You might need to stop sharing.
I have stopped sharing that, and I've clicked on. So I've gone from Kirby's to Lars, but it's not. So weird.
Yeah, good evening, guys. Yeah, probably can still see the AFIA announcement slide.
Yeah, I'm just, so on my screen I can see.
It's Gary now. And
yeah, I can see that. But if I go to my other screen, my PowerPoint screen, I've got your presentation there. No. So if
do you have to get out of this one?
I'm trying to.
Through the same as what you did before, leave the presentation, I think.
Yeah, I did. I've done that. Let me just.
The other option is to hover over Lars's name on your participant list and see if you can make him a presenter, and then he could share it from his machine.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyone got a joke while we're waiting? We'll offer a prize for the best joke.
Prue, this is Bruno here. Maybe you should try to then unshare and share again, because while you're sharing that screen, you can't share any other screen.
Okay.
Try to unshare and then try to share Lars' presentation instead.
Let me just. 1 minute. So weird, because I've done exactly the same as I did with Kirby's presentation.
Maybe if you like Bruno's saying, unshare both of them one more time so that we just see, it'll come back to just seeing the videos of participants, and then start again just with that one presentation.
The little cross on the top of your screen, Prue, if you click on that, that should normally just stop sharing the presentation.
Yes.
Just guessing this is how it works on mine normally.
Could it be possible too that with a couple of screens at your end, it might be getting a bit confused if you close down everything in the background?
Then I'm just worried that I might close down the whole meeting.
We'll try and close our presentation, get rid of the AFIA presentation, because we can operate without it for the rest of the night if we can't bring it back.
Oh my goodness. Hang on, I'm just going to see if my...
Our organiser has abandoned the room. This is concerning.
Yeah, I might start just anyway, just say a couple of things.
Lars, I was just going to say, if it's all right with you, Gary didn't have a presentation. He was just going to give us an update on his region. So yeah. Gary, maybe if you don't mind, we might switch across to you, and then we'll come back to Lars when we've found his presentation.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Excellent. We can just see you on, you're only a little person on our screen, but that's all good. So welcome and thank you for your time tonight. And we look forward to hearing about how things are looking in my home area, Central West New South Wales. I'm from Orange originally, and I have to be cheeky and say I always call Dubbo Dub Vegas, but welcome, and we look forward to hearing about what's happening in your area, aside from the COVID stories.
Yeah, I know we seem to be in the news a lot, but not for the right reason at the moment. But anyway, that's the nature of COVID, isn't it? So yeah, thank you. So yeah, Gary Burton, we run a business based out of Dubbo, which is we grow hay, we hay contractors, we transport hay, and I do a little bit of trading as well. So that's sort of a common, we're active in most components of the hay industry. So on the season around here at the moment, as good as it's been, actually. I was in one of the trucks in the last week, and I've travelled from Toowoomba to in Queensland to Tocumwal in the south part of New South Wales, and all the way through, the crops are really strong. Probably talking to a guy up around Narrabri, he's sort of predicting some of his wheat to go average up around 5 tonne to the hectare this year, and that's dry land. So the season around that northwestern area, we've been up there carting cotton the last few weeks, and if you look at the crops, they're just starting to come out into head, and they are very strong this year. Probably some are down around West Wyalong area. Some areas there have had probably too much rain, and there's some water logging, and you can see some of the crops yellowing off from having too much water. But generally, there's quite a lot of people talking about there being nearly better crops than what there was last year. There's been a bit less rain than last year, but that's probably working quite well. And we're predicting 10 to 20 mils of rain again this weekend. So that's going to, for a lot of the guys, that'll be enough to finish their crops as it stands at the moment. So there's, if we talk about hay versus grain, there's a lot of discussion this year about guys taking the grain option rather than hay, simply because they see better margins, and also there's a lot of hay still in storage right through the region. So I know in driving around in the truck the last few days, the amount of round bales still in rows in the paddocks, sheds are still full. There was a lot of discussion earlier about the mice damage to some of the hay, and that's certainly been an issue for some, particularly further west of here. And anybody who cut hay where there was a fair amount of grain in the product, they've certainly been damaged by the mice. But the mice have backed off for the moment, although I had heard from an agronomist the last couple of days, there's some mice starting to pick up again around Nyngan and sort of west of Coonamble as well. So the activity was starting to build in a couple of those areas. So let's hope that doesn't take off too much, at least anyway, because they certainly did some damage earlier in the year, as everyone would have heard. So the hay marketplace has been fairly quiet this year. We're still moving a little bit, but generally the general farmer market just hasn't been there because they've all got that much feed on their properties. As much as livestock are worth a lot of money, people are prepared to feed, but they just haven't had to by virtue of the amount of grass in the paddocks. I've had a couple of guys buying some hay because their grass has been that green. They've been putting some roughage into their stock just to balance their diets, particularly up in the New England area. So the hay market has been reasonably quiet, and that sort of is leading to the fact there'll be a fairly large carryover, I think, of hay stored on farm this year. Hence the probably slower, the less demand for guys wanting to make hay this year, short of the guys who are putting hay into the feedlot market and the dairy market, for example. So by and large, we're looking at a really good season, second one in a row, basically. So I guess it's only, if we've had two, there might be another couple in it before we turn dry again. Who knows? The cycle will turn, I'm sure, back to hopefully not where we were in that in the big drought, but a bit more balance would be good. But that's generally where it is at the moment. So I guess that's probably it from Central New South Wales. Any questions from anybody?
Yeah, Gary, it's Lars. Just wanted to ask you personally, do you combine harvest then more grain this year yourself, or are you still pretty heavily, going for hay this season, or where are you at yourself, being such a professional?
Myself, we are going to grain this year more than hay. We'll still do some hay, certainly, but some of the area that we would normally have as hay, I'm actually going to take through to grain this year. We've actually planted wheat as our grain crop this year. And so in country where we had oats and so forth last year, we've got irrigation country just out of Dubbo. And we're going to do a wheat crop. Then we're going to go behind that under the irrigation with a bean crop, so over the summer. So as to double crop it. But so that's, we'll still have obviously hay, and I've got some contract growers. Some of those guys are still doing hay for me, but they're sort of backing off on the acreage of hay this year.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Gary. Can I ask you a sort of bit of a policy question, but that is just curious, both with I noticed the Dubbo sale yards, I think, were shut down today after a COVID scare, but and I think you said you headed into Queensland, Toowoomba recently. Did you have any challenges getting into Queensland? I'm interested in what I'll call border control, and just generally, how would you sort of rate the COVID impact on your business?
The COVID impact hasn't been huge, although we've sort of been very structured with the way we do things around our processes and policies and so forth. To give an example, going into Queensland, you've got to have a COVID test every 72 hours. I crossed the border about 8 o'clock last, I think it was Monday night, and I had my test on Saturday morning. I had my results back on Sunday, so I was allowed to go through. But when that first came in, there was a few dramas. I know my son sat at Gundawindi on the New South Wales side for a day and a half waiting for his test results to come through. But fortunately, the processes there have improved. So we're getting our results back normally within 24 hours. But when you've got to have a test every 72 hours, it doesn't give you a lot of time. So that's been an issue for us driving into Queensland, carting grain up there. So coming back into New South Wales, there's no issue obviously. But to give you any comparison, when I went over the border the other night, there was only 2 trucks in the line right on the border. When I came back the following day, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they were lined up from the big roundabout in Gundawindi all the way back to the bridge, which is about 1 kilometre, I suppose. So they're mostly trucks. There's not a lot of cars on the road now. You drive up the Newell Highway, it's probably 90% trucks now. So the amount of cars has backed off significantly, which is understandable. The town itself here, like Dubbo's been in the news a lot with COVID, as you're aware. The town itself it's basically slowed right off unless there's people getting around a little bit, but they're all essential workers or they're going to get there to a special appointment, whether it be a doctor or get some groceries. A lot of people are doing the click and collect for their groceries and that nowadays. So there's a whole new way of shopping pretty much. So even to go, I had to go to the post office and they're just, you've got to be, wherever you go, you've got to obviously wear your mask, you've got to sign in or do your QR check-in. And everywhere is pretty strict with that. I was at a cotton gin southwest of Moree this morning, carting cotton there, and in there everyone had masks on, everyone had the QR code to check in, and people are pretty responsible. You know, you talk to the odd person, they think it's might be a little blasé, but I'd say 98% of people are sort of taking it seriously, particularly since there's been more cases. And like everyone around here basically knows someone who's been a close contact. One of my staff, her 2 children were at one of the schools where they had close contact with students there. So she was in isolation for 2 weeks. And that's the thing that impacts quite a lot of people is if you've got to go into isolation. So that girl who works for me, she couldn't come to work for 2 weeks because she was in self-isolation. So that's having a fairly big impact across a lot of the people who would normally be able to go to work, including health workers and so forth that are tied up because they're classified as close contacts. That's probably the biggest impact at the moment.
Thanks, Gary. Team AFIA knows that I had a click and collect experience to get a gas bottle refill at Bunnings, and it took 48 hours for Bunnings to tell me my order was ready to collect. So thankfully I wasn't relying on the barbecue to cook dinner that night, but yes, and it's a bit of an experience. Anyone else got a question for Gary? No? Okay, thanks for the update, Gary, and for joining us tonight. And our lead organiser now has Lars's presentation up on our screen. So Lars, will hand over to you. Thank you.
Pleasure, thank you.
No worries, thanks Gary, and thanks Paula. Good evening, guys. Hello from Kubota, Australia, and KRONE. I guess you know, the COVID situation, it's all impacting us in a lot of different ways, and I'm just hoping that, you know, we see the light at the end of the tunnel, and there is not more trouble coming down our way, I guess, and yeah, we can all have our normal life back, I guess, even though a lot of things will be learned out of this, and that's also positive, but it's definitely draining for sure. Like, you know, in Melbourne, 220 days in lockdown, it's incredible, and yeah, we're just hoping that we get some sort of normality back, because it's just about time, I feel. So from us, I guess the ag industry is going really, really well. And you know, we're looking at even though the hay season will be somewhat lighter one this year, we're still looking at, you know, relatively big sales in farm machinery and also still hay gear. Even though the big square baler market, it had been a record one last year by a long shot, and it has been very steadily on high numbers. I'm assuming that it will take a bit of a dive this year, even though machines are still being sold. You know, when you look at farming in Australia, it's certainly a lot of positivity there, and that's a good thing for our industries. So, Prue, we might go to the next slide. We felt that as the gold sponsor, we had the opportunity here to talk at this Fodder forum, and even though we can't meet in person, the Fodder Fest that we did in March, I think it was well run, and you know, we feel that those sort of events are somewhat the future. You know, the field days circuit, I guess at the end of the day, it needs to be done. But these sort of events are certainly a very positive way of showing machinery. And yeah, we look forward to doing those events again in the future, even though this little session here is also something interesting, and you know, it gets people still talking. And I wish there would be a couple more people here, but at the end of the day, it's a good start for your first session. So our new machine, the Big Pack Generation 5, we've had such a machine at the Fodder Fest. If we go back one slide, Prue, one more time. We have this machine available since this year officially. We sold 2 machines last year. They've gone really well in South Australia and New South Wales, near Young and near Gawler. And the machine you see here is the one in Gawler, equipped with a bow collect. The machine is an exciting update to our HDP 6-knotter series that will be sold alongside the high-speed and the HDP2 8-knotter machines. And we feel that it really sets the benchmark for the next few years, as we have changed a lot of things around the machine that mainly serve the comfort of the operator as one. So, you know, the machine is cleaner, it's easier to operate, the twine boxes fold down. I'll show you a couple of things on that. And also we've taken the feedback on cost of ownership back, and have reduced that quite significantly by doing technical changes to the machine. I'll show you some of those. I've only really got, I think, 12 or 13 slides. I want to not have any major words on the presentation. I really feel like, you know, showing an impactful image, you know what I'm talking about by looking at the image and listening to the speaker, rather than actually trying to read something on the slides. So you'll see a pretty clean presentation. And afterwards, it's really cool that we have the Q&A time, because yeah, I really would like you guys to fire away with any questions that you may have. And even Bruno or John, you know, you guys can also fire questions. So all good. All right. So I guess we'll have these machines in pretty big numbers this year. There's still a couple left for us. I think 2 cutter versions and 3 non-cutter versions, but the dealers also have a few machines left of these. In the next year, then we will also have these machines available in the non-HDP format, which means the standard 4x3 and also the 1270 with a slightly smaller bow chamber. And we'll go next. So as you can see, from a general styling point of view, very changed machine. We've given the machines the fold down twine boxes, like our 8-knotter machines, the HDP2. You can see the 2 hoods opening up the top there. One is the new knotter fan, hydraulically driven knotter fan, which is quite an exciting new feature on the machine that keeps the machine clean, not just in the knotter area, but also down the sides of the bow chambers and between the twine boxes when they're folded up, all the way down to the axle, because there's some tubing and channeling there, and the airstream literally pushes air down from the top and pushes it onto the knotter stack, keeps material in the bow chamber, and then pushes the airstream down to the side of the baler. So, you know, quite a few nice changes on the machine. We go next. Prue, thank you. So, you know, you can see a bit of, just for visualization, the machine on the left-hand side is our HDP2, the 8-knotter balers. This picture here taken up in Jamestown. You know, they're a successful baler in regards to what they deliver in regards to productivity, bale density, and they will continue for a few more years as they are, even though we're also going to add the hydraulic knotter fan to the machines for next season. And that will also be available as a retrofit kit going forward, so that people that have existing machines can also put the new hydraulic fan off the Generation 5 machines basically onto their machines. You can see the Generation 4, that's the high-speed balers. That's a picture taken in near Kara in New South Wales, and then the Generation 5 machines. So that's the range. The existing 6 knotters, the high speeds, will stay in the lineup as an more price competitive alternative. But then we see a lot of people going into the new generation simply because it's been a very nice update to our existing machines. So we'll go next. So starting with the pickup, we still have an easy flow canvas pickup design on the top left-hand side. We've done some small modifications. You can see the pickup on the rear is now opened, and it's such a small feature that you would say, why even mention it? But it's just been quite difficult to cut twine out of the pickup previously when you have twine wrapped around it. And now you can basically access all of that from underneath the machine. You have these big windows. You can go in there with a knife, cut the twine out, or also if you had a broken tine, let's say, that now can shoot out the rear there quite easily without going around the pickup one more time and doing more damage. So that's a nice little feature. Apart from that, the crop roller is adjustable now with a crank, on a central crank. So you can just wind that up or down, and the crop roller will come up or down. And you adjust that based on the height of the windrow rather than using the chains on the left and right hand side. So we keep on going there. Sorry. For the guys that are into cutter balers, cutting obviously is a big thing in Europe as well. We are selling about 40% of our machines with cutters these days, often not like on the right hand side with a full set of 26 knives used by the customers, but more like maybe 4 to 10 knives. So first of all, the cutter machine now has a belt drive to the cutter rotor, just like a HTP2 8-knotter machine. And this allows us to feather the cutting rotor, but also the pickup. And we can basically engage or disengage them very quickly with a power belt, and a hydraulic cylinder and a pulley on the belt. So, for example, if we've blocked the packer up and the packer clutch is going off, the pickup and the cutting rotor will automatically disengage. Or also when you want to start your PTO, quite simply, you can do that and then push a button on the monitor to engage the pickup and the cutting rotor. There's a reverser available for the cutting rotor. It's an option, not something we generally recommend. You don't generally need it, but it is available for the guys that really want to equip their machines with everything. And we also now offer a hydraulic pickup drive for the non-cutter version, where you can drive the pickup with a hydraulic motor and you can make it match your forward speed, or you can simply adjust any speed that you want from the monitor. So the cutter cassette can pull out to the left hand side, sorry. And you can see with quick couplers on the hydraulic hoses, you can literally take that thing off in 5 minutes and have it laying there on a little trolley, basically. The machine then is equipped with a rotor that is equipped with one style of rotor, and you can now on this machine put a different cassette in. Instead of using 26 knives, you can put up to 51 knives in there. So if you had a straw situation where you want to cut even finer, or a silage situation where you want to cut even finer, you can put a cassette in there. The rotor is already in the machine for 51 knives. You don't need to change the rotor, and you are up and running up to 51 knives. So if you want to make it 35, it's up to you. You can just take a few knives out. So very smart move there, very professional, even though the market for the professionalism in the cutter, I guess, is not it's not such a big thing in Australia because we simply don't do that much silage with the machines and don't cut as short. But the options are there now, up to 51 knives in the machine. So we go next. So our VFS, the variable filling system, packer system, we believe in this system still because you can see on the pictures on the left-hand side, you've got a very large rotor there with 4 or 5 packer shafts, packer strips. The red one is the one that pushes the biscuit up in front of the plunger. And this system here, whether you have just a pickup machine or a cutting rotor machine, takes away the material from the pickup or cutting rotor very gently because the large rotor rotates very slowly, and that allows less stress on the material or less friction on the material already, disturbance on the material, whether it's in dry situation, allows you to bow a little bit longer and still produce a nice bow, but also for lucerne and stuff like that, very gentle on the crop. Now, on the right-hand side, you can see we've added the guys that are familiar with the big packs, they can see this, quite a bit different there. The gearboxes are all a bit different, and like to mention that at that point that 85% of the parts have been updated. It doesn't mean they've been updated to be completely different. It just means they had they have a new part number, and the KRONE guys have literally redesigned things on them. Which means it's not just an update with a new model number on the bonnet. It really is a new model of this type of machine. So the thing that I was pointing out there with number 1 is a sensor on the packer system, so we can now read the force on the packer, and that's displayed on the monitor. So we actually know when there is a blockage just about to occur, or your operator is driving the machine too hard. Or you can see things like are you not driving the machine hard enough because simply there's not a lot of force on there, and that sort of stuff has now been added to the machine. We go to the next slide, Prue. Thank you. This one here, correct. So on the right hand side, a lot of changes too on the tripping mechanism to our VFS packer system. So of course we have a pre-chamber that collects the material. In the past we were relying totally on just a spring system to determine how much we pre-pack the material in the pre-chamber system. Now we have added some electronic components that allow us to also know exactly what the system is doing. You can see that better on the monitor. And you can run it traditionally, just like our previous machine, by just pushing the default button and just running it in one mode. But if you are so inclined and you want to do a couple of changes on the pre-chamber, for example, fill the pre-chamber more or fill the pre-chamber less for different crop conditions, you have 5 settings on the monitor to do that. And that allows you also a better filling on the pre-chamber, and you're a little bit more in charge in what you're actually doing with the machine. So the sensor number 2 down there measures our feeler rake on the rear to figure out how much material is actually in the pre-chamber, and the clutch mechanism number 1, which is not energized in a 1-to-1 situation. That clutch mechanism basically holds the VFS system to do a 2-to-1 situation, so 2 plunger strokes for 1 feet, or a 3-to-1 situation. And this clutch here comes from the forklift industry and is a very reliable component. A lot of people would go, not sure, more electronic components on the VFS system to trip it, but rest assured, the clutch mechanism there basically is not even utilized if you're just running the machine in 1-to-1. And that's the general situation where the machine runs 1-to-1. So you're feeding it very well, and you're doing a feed of the pre-chamber system to a plunger stroke. So if you had if you pull the wire off that clutch mechanism, it will go 1-to-1 all the time, every day. And that's basically, how you're driving the machine in general anyway. So very good system. We've been testing the machine for 5 years in Australia, and are very happy with the results. It's good that KRONE tests in Australia rather than just, sells a big amount of machines but doesn't really take it serious enough. So that was also a good thing and gives us a lot of confidence in regards to these machines. You can see on the right-hand side, the new generation 5. In regards to the packer shafts, it's got 7 tines rather than 5 on the HS series. And on the outside, we each, on left and right, we add 1 more tine to that shaft. So we basically have now 9 tines pulling away the material on each packer strip. And there's still 5 in there. So there's 9 tines instead of 7. So that gives also a better feeding from the pickup or the cutting rotor again, and also a bit better bow shape on the outside of the bows on top of it as a nice side effect. All right, we keep on going. So a bit more, a couple of tech things inside the VFS, because I know the guys that are running KRONEs, they're interested in this, and even the guys that are not, they're hearing things and, they want to know what's going on. So the cam track on the right-hand side, which does our red packer strip that was shown there before in the picture, that lifts the material, it's controlled by the right-hand cam track, and that's the pictures on the left-hand side. So you can see the Gen 5 now has a split cam track, while the HS, the high-speed generation, the cam track next to it, it's basically one ring. It's basically one solid cam track. And the cam track on the left-hand side now is split, which means if you did have a component failure in this area, you don't have to pull the inside internal major shaft out of the packer system. You can basically remove the 2 parts of the cam track quite easily and by just unbolting it and putting a new one in there. So that helps in regards to costs of labor, I guess, to do this job, and it's just a lot quicker. There's one of those levers that sits on the outside where the bearings are in, and the bearings basically on this 6-knotter machine now come from the HDP2, so they're larger in diameter, they have a better sealing, and we believe that we've gone double, if not a little bit more, in lifetime on these bearings, which means less costs, less running costs, and downtime as well. So in general, those bearings, they get replaced on an annual or biannual basis, and we feel that's now minimum double. So we'll go from there. The other thing is now, Prue, you might need to go, I'm not sure, do you dare to go into presentation mode? Because there's now, unfortunately, a couple of ones behind it. I'm not sure what that does to your presentation, though. Yeah, unfortunately, there was an animation there, so I've got a couple of pictures below it, and to see them, you got to go into presentation mode. Maybe, Prue, if you grab that center picture and you just bring it to the right-hand side, move it out of the way, the whole thing. Can you? That's it. Beautiful. So, bounce us back. We now have a split barrel ejector. So beforehand, our barrel ejector tines were basically one lot to remove all the barrels in the chamber. What we've done is we've got a rest barrel ejector, which means we can move all tines in to move them all out, or only a few tines on the rear to then only remove the last barrel. The tines have been have a new arrangement. They're forced out of the floor. They're not sitting up anymore. They're now forced out of the floor as soon as they start moving, which means build up in the slot there isn't going to worry the tine coming out, and also a little bit less wear on the upper side on the tine when your barrels are sliding over there because they're sitting flush with the floor. You can operate all of that from the left-hand side, obviously, with button control, and it's still an automatic barrel ejector, which is a KRONE exclusive. Yeah, to engage the rest barrel ejector, you just change the tap position, and if you move the picture on the center to the left, then you can actually see the rest barrel ejector. and you'll be able to see the 4 tines there, and that pulls out the last bow. The center picture, it basically shows you a couple of areas with the red circles. So Prue, if you pull that back in the center, maybe almost. Yep. That's it. So it basically shows you that the extreme features of our balers, we had a high speed and an extreme. The extreme had a couple of wear liners in there. That's all standard equipment on this new machine as well. So we don't differentiate between a high speed and an extreme. So we don't have a Gen 5 extreme. It's just a machine that has these extreme components included, which also makes it easier and suits us because, yeah, we are baling in a tough country here, and any additional wear liners and stuff like that will always help. We go to the next picture. Thank you. So here also Prue, if you pull that diagram, exactly that one, if you pull that down just to the left, that's it, perfect. Now, so you can see a bit of a comparison with the previous high-speed machine and its twine boxes. Twine box down and twine box folded up. We now have changed the twine boxes completely. The design is that you can fold in 2 different modes. So the top 2 pictures there show the top left-hand picture there with the twine box open. In the middle there, it shows the twine boxes all the way down, like the 8-knotter machine. So they hydraulically move away from the machine, means you can walk around the machine, you can clean the machine nicely. You can load your twine balls from the ground without any fuss, but you can still also fold the twine boxes the same way as our high speed, and that's in the bottom middle picture. You see that, but the twine boxes are now not moved out by your hand, but they're moved out by a hydraulic cylinder. So you can angle the twine box away from the bow chamber and do service work or cleaning work, whatever you may want to do. We've changed the twine box layout completely. On the left-hand top 2 pictures, the high speed, you basically can see how the door is basically the twine box as well. That's changed so that the door now on our new machine is really just sealing the area where the twine balls are. So there's no chance of material falling onto you anymore when you open that door, which could happen beforehand because, yeah, we had a square area on top of the twine box. So that's cleaned up nicely to, again, we talked about comfort of operation and operator comfort. Those things we're taking very serious. Now, when you move that diagram up again, Prue, perfect. So you can sort of see what I tried to do there. The diagram shows you on the right-hand side, the bottom twines. That's the 3 on the right-hand side. They basically have 3 twine balls connected. And the upper twine on the left-hand side has only 2 connected to each other. So we have a 6-knotter machine. And from the right-hand side, it actually shows it there, 1A to 3A, and then 1A to 3A again. But we basically have connected 1 lot more twine to the lower twine, which results in longer baling. And it's also very nicely configured because you just have to go from the top to the bottom and you're done. You don't have to look left and right and hook up the ones that are not not in line, I guess. So that's very clean and straightforward. And we also can now fit 15 kilogram twine balls. So that's a new twine ball. Not sure if any manufacturers of twine or distributors of twine are in the meeting too, but there will be those demands in the future to not just have 10 kilogram twine balls, but also 15 kilograms. So that's a thing that you can fit into this machine for longer baling days. So we go next. That's the second last slide. So kept almost some of the best feature of the machine last, and that's the new Power Clean hydraulic knotter fan. So we basically do not have an air compressor anymore on the machine near the flywheel, and we totally rely on the knotter fan rather than actually the compressed air system over the knotters. And this knotter fan is hydraulically driven. You can see the little hydraulic motor on the left picture in between the 2 fans up the top on the picture. And they are run via the onboard hydraulic system on this machine. the fans suck air from the top of the machine, push it down onto the nodders, which means less material gets a chance to actually be pulled up from the baling chamber or from the VFS area, and with positive pressure, it pushes air down onto the nodders, which means the nodders stay cleaner. We seem to have less wear on the nodders as well, simply because we don't pull as much dust anymore over the nodders. And then the airstream is guided to the left and right hand side, past the twine boxes towards the axle, and that means even the axle down there gets clean as well, and that means the machine overall stays very clean. You can see on the top right hand picture the South Australian contractor. That's what it looks like on top of the machine now. It's very, very clean, and he even admitted that he had a couple of days in the season where he simply didn't blow down the baler and just went baling again, because it simply is that clean. So that lets us get to the last one, I think, and then we're done. You might hear my kids in the background. New extra twine boxes, they're just a new shape. We had them before. They're still there, and we're also going to have for next year a new inoculant system available as an option. So that's integrated into the KRONE monitor and something that will come along for next year. So it gives you a bit of an idea. There's plenty more features on the machine, to be honest, that we don't have time to go into detail here, but at the end of the day, a really nice update of our machine, also for the future. And I've got no doubt that we're putting out a really, really good machine that will hit the market with a good response. Okay, so the last slide then, just leaving it on that slide, and if you have any questions, just fire them away, because I love interaction and I love talking, and there's no question that you should be too shy to ask. So go for it, whether it's the big pack or any other products, go for it.
Thanks, Lars. I think I've got a question from Cameron Angel.
Cameron.
G'day, Lars. How are you, mate? That was a great presentation.
No problem. Thank you.
Just in relation to for tractors, balers this season, obviously, most things, logistical and the like.
Sorry, Cameron. I really did. I missed this in regards to tractors and machinery, and then I sort of missed it. One more time.
Just about parts and twine and everything this year, Lars.
Yes.
Contractors and growers be a bit more prepared this year. How are you? What's your inventory for your parts look like?
Parts, to be honest, we've had a bit of growing pain over the years. Obviously, we have sold a lot more machines on a yearly basis every year, climbing. The market has gone up. Also, our market share or our numbers have gone up, and we had a bit of growing pains there in regards to parts supply, but that has not been a problem in the last year at all. And I think even since 2 years, we've done a lot better there. So we've taken our parts now back into our warehouse. We had a third-party supplier from Toyota Logistics that used to supply parts to the Toyota factory here in Melbourne. They were looking after our parts holding or parts storing, and we've taken all that back into in-house, basically into our facility there in Truganina, Western Melbourne. And we feel that our fill rate is now exactly where it is a lot better to how the market is asking for parts, definitely. And as manufacturers, it's very difficult to hold every single component, but we definitely had a lot less customers asking for a higher stocking rate in regards to our parts last year.
No, that's good. And just one more question with you: in the European market, what do they use, like that really fine, like had to have 50 knives in? What would that product be used for? What would the purpose of that be?
It is a lot of straw, Cameron. Basically, imagine, they're still using, I would say, maybe 50% Walker tine separator combines, which produce longer straw, and then 50% rotary. So where in Australia, we're clearly sitting at 98%, or I don't know what, 99% rotary. And then in air brittle, drier conditions, the straw is shorter already anyway, but in Europe, the straw is longer. And that's what they want to cut. And then also fill the biogas, systems to have short material, but also for bedding, a lot for animal bedding, when shorter material just has a better suction capacity than long material. I feel we never really have those needs here in a big way, unless you're going into fine cut silage, I guess, at the end of the day. So in a straw situation, our straw is already that short anyway, and that's smashed up, that we just don't have that need for this fine cut system. That's basically it. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So yep. No, that's great. Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks, Cameron. Sam, we had a question from you, but maybe you took your hand down. Maybe Cameron anticipated your question, did he?
Yeah, he did actually, but no, that's all good. With the baler and the pickup, how would that go trying to adapt the steamer to it?
Yes, we do have Staheli West, the steamer manufacturer. They do produce kits for the KRONE machines, no problem. They produce them for all different manufacturers. I guess there is dealers, even KRONE dealers in Australia, that are steamer dealers, and we have several units out there for many years running the steamer without any dramas. To give you one example, Big Bear Co over in WA, the big contractors, they run a HTP2 always in the Rio Tinto iron ore mine. They do about 40,000 barrels up there, and they run a steamer to get more dew into more moisture into the barrels, simply because in the desert they just don't have enough dewy days. So yeah. So yeah, no problem. There is a bit of that. I've had a couple of customers asking, "Oh, I'm not sure about your KRONEs with the steamer and whatever," but that's it's, to my knowledge, it's not correct that we cannot run a steamer at all. Like, there's several examples in the market with guys with steamers, but marketing wise, of course, there is then sometimes John's Echo product hanging behind the steamer often, and that's just how that goes. A North American product as well. So no problem.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. With the new fan setup, that obviously works a lot better than the old system that was on them. Because I think they were, at one stage, they were belt driven, weren't they?
Yeah, so all the old ones on the 6-knotter, correct? You're correct, Sam. On the 6-knotter and also the 8-knotter are a belt-driven system between the two fans, or between the fan. We have a shaft going from the flywheel up towards the gearbox that then drives the fan. And on an 8-knotter, there is a fan connecting a belt connecting two fans together. Again, driven with a shaft coming from the flywheel. So those ones, a couple of guys have converted those to hydraulic drive, which is a good move, I guess, in a way, because it just simplifies everything a bit more. But just in general, I guess the fan design now, sucking air from the top and pushing it down actively, creating a positive pressure and pushing the airstream down, just simply also results in even less chance of material being sucked up from the baling chamber, because we always, potentially with the fan in front of the knotters, we always have an airstream going over it like this. So you have potentially a chance to have more material being sucked up from the baling chamber as well. And that's now completely eliminated. Like, it is very good to see how clean the machine actually is with these. Like, works well.
Yeah,
awesome. And will be available as a retrofit kit for all machines, but with a concentration on the HTTP2 for next year. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Sam. Any more questions for Lars?
Lars, you mentioned, sorry, just to butt in, Lars, you mentioned that you're focused on getting the cost of ownership down. I think that's been a knock on the KRONEs for, well, I suppose since the 8 stringers came out, just the cost of ownership has almost outpriced themselves. Like, what have you done with that, the new model that's going to be so much change, I suppose?
So cost of ownership, I guess, at the end of the day, one is the pricing of the machine. The pricing is the pricing, I guess. There's not really a huge change there, obviously, because I feel we're well priced with our machine in general. And, the 8-knotter machine, obviously, is a different level in regards to productivity and bow density. Now, from a cost of ownership point of view, from a yearly maintenance point of view, the key things are in the VFS, so the key cost to an operator would be changing the VFS bearings potentially after a certain amount of time. Or, for example, we potentially had what Sam was talking about there, the belt or the pulleys on the knotter fan. They need replacing at some stage. So there we have a completely new knotter fan system. We've given this machine here bigger bearings and better sealed bearings on the VFS system. Any sort of work around, even on the tripping mechanism on the right-hand side, that you may have spent a bit more time and labor to actually fix it. It's a lot easier to dismantle and remove components, so that if service work was required, there simply is a lesser cost there. I guess the key thing is in the VFS area to reduce yearly maintenance cost, I guess, and that's been achieved in this machine, and I've got no doubt also going forward on any updates on the 8-knotter. The 8-knotter scenario, I guess, is a different one, and we don't sit down. I guess maybe we should, but we sometimes don't sit down and talk to guys enough on what the 8-knotter HTP, I guess, has brought into the industry as well, in regards to savings around, a customer who may have had 4 big packs or 4 6-knotter machines or 4 balers in general, might be on 2 HTP2s. So, there's like 2 machines less, 2 tractors less, 2 operators less. You have less storage area for your hay in the sheds, the transportation. All of that has brought farmers and contractors a huge amount of benefit in the market. And, the proof is in the pudding, because you can see not just us having gone the HTP way, but also other manufacturers going into this direction, and that cost saving, I guess, to the end user, or the transportation costs and stuff like that. That's really where it's at as well in regards to high density or 8-knotter HTP2 baling, and of course that comes a little bit at a cost as well on the yearly maintenance point of view, because the machines simply put that much material through them to such a excellent bow weight, I guess. And you being an owner of it, I guess it's the situation, putting those numbers down on a piece of paper and really looking at what is the actual cost, and then what's also the savings and the achievements that the machines have brought. And I think we're still in a very good balance there, I feel.
Thanks,
not sure
Lars.
your comments there, Brad, but I guess the key message is on a high performance, high density machine, there is obviously a lot of product going through that bell chamber, and at the end of the day, in a short amount of time, and the maintenance cost reduction was a key feedback, and we've taken that pretty serious. Yeah.
Thanks, Lars. If there are no further questions, we might wrap that up there and move on to our next presenter. So any questions, late questions? Pip, did you have one?
Yeah, sorry, Lars, I was just going to say, following on from the Fodder Festival, we obviously have the demonstration video, which is going to be live on the website for everyone to view. And so the link will go when there'll be a follow-up email to this event. So there'll be a link on it so everyone can jump onto YouTube for all those guys that missed out on seeing you guys in action at the Fodder Festival.
Perfect, awesome. No worries. Thank you. Thanks for the questions.
Thanks, Lars. You and I talked earlier tonight about the fact you've got a young family at home and 3 little people. So we appreciate you taking the time out tonight at what is the busy family time. So thanks a lot.
Cool. Thanks.
We're going to hand over to Cameron now to give us an update on what life's like in southern Queensland region. So welcome, Cameron.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Thanks, AFIA and Pip and Prue and everyone for organising. Yeah, no, really good. Yeah, quick snapshot, Queensland. Everything looks great in southern Queensland. If we want to start down there, it's been an amazing season and looking really, really good. Hay quantities getting made are small, like the same as I suppose your East Coast. You're probably 20%, 30% of what would be in a normal season getting made. Everyone going to grain just purely on the math and you know, the slowness in the roughage or the effective fibre sort of market. So yeah, so prices sitting, you know, new season hay just getting baled over the next couple of weeks when most of it will get done. A lot of barley hitting the ground now, a lot of oats on the ground now. So we've got a lovely barley window at the moment. So that's really exciting. We potentially can see some really nice hay, and that's probably trading from 220 and some guys holding out up to their 300 numbers, you know, so in that sort of range for cereal. For straw this season, most growers, again, in the north, as they normally are, very reluctant to make straw. But look, the potential markets are here are small. But, you know, that'll trade between, you know, 100 and 150. Most stuff between that sort of 120 to 150 mark will be 150 will be long spread sort of stuff, but 120 out of the paddock, you know, for cereal straw. And lucerne up here, again, very limited guys going back into lucerne. The New South Wales have come back really strongly there, which has been great because the vetch is going to be short. So I think those guys are going to have a good year. But at the moment, that'd be ex-farm, you know, and we're on quality $300 to $400 a tonne ex-farm for lucerne up here in the south. As you move into central Queensland, it's been a really poor season there, quite dry in central Queensland. So we haven't got any dryland straw up there at all this season. And, you know, we've been able to snabble one of the few lots of irrigated wheat. Most guys up there with chickpeas. Lentil market very strong. So any water they have had, which they don't have much water, went into in the lentils market. So we've made a tiny bit of straw in central Queensland, but not much. So that market will use roughage later in the year for sure. The guys in the north, like Tablelands, if we're up there, Townsville, Mount Garnet, those guys that make hay for us up there, normal year, and they're trading at their general prices. So sort of 250 for pasture hay and cereal hay getting made in the north, and that's getting done traditionally and getting done really well now, actually, in by a small percentage of growers, but being done well. That's about $300 a tonne that'll trade for this year. So you know, that's really good. Northwest, again, quite dry, like in some places there, some very patchy, but quite dry. So you know, so we're going to find out whether that Hughenden region, whether that water is going to be approved by the Queensland government and that project go ahead. That's $1 billion project, which could potentially be very exciting in that area up there. So irrigators are excited there to do some more irrigating in Queensland. Yeah, but I suppose CQ's dry, North Queensland's fine, Northwest is quite dry. The southwest is in really good shape, and the southeast corner again in really good shape. So yeah, we're making hay. There's hay on the ground. Now, whether you guys, I can't see the presentation, but I've got some photos there of barley crops that have been cut. So they're some of the best crops I've ever seen, to be honest, on the down since I've been, you know, in the broking business here. So yeah, but again, just a small percentage of hay being made, most going through to grain, obviously chasing these great grain prices. Yeah, so that's sort of the hay, I suppose, front. And I'm quite bullish, like with hay as a general thing, I'm quite bullish about it. I think we've got the wooden spoon firmly in our hand for the last 12 months, but that's going to change. For high quality product, it's going to be in demand. There is not much quality product being around. And yeah, so I think if you're going to make some more hay, there's opportunities, you know, and yeah, a lot of poor quality product obviously in South Australia and in Victoria, and guys really tipping that out at the moment, you know, to make room in their grain sheds and stuff. So there's some absolute, yeah, craziness happening with pricing at the moment. But you know, I'm thinking it's, you know, I don't know what will happen with that lower quality product, but it's going to be difficult to shift for another 12 months. But any good hay that's about, yeah, I'm quite bullish, you know. And from my users' perspective, the dairy market's flying up here, except for the tablelands, but the rest of it, it's incredibly strong. And the feedlot sector, you know, again, is adapting to these new prices, and they're operating. So, but obviously using hay and straw, you know, at 1.5% level, we're going to have a lot of cottonseed to compete with for the next 2 years. So that's going to be strong, like trading at sort of 300 downs from April on next year. So that's they'll really include that at high levels, and so that'll take a lot of straw and hay out of the ration. And that'll bring cottonseed hulls as well. So that's another effective fibre that we haven't seen for 3 years. That'll be competing with straw, and it'll knock a lot of straw out. So straw going into the feedlot sector, I would think for the next couple of years is going to be down significantly. But as far as good hay goes, yeah. I think there's going to be quite a few homes just because it's being made 20%, 30%. I don't know, other people might have different views, but that's what I'm seeing from my growers would be, you know, the production that they would normally make, they'd only be making 20 to 30% of that. So it'd be interesting what the string sellers are saying in that perspective. They'd have a good feel on it, but that's my sort of sense of the market there, yeah. And I just wanted to make note of a couple of other things, probably just the mice that are around. We've got significant mice, not significant yet, but they're very active. So a lot of baiting going on for mice up here already, which doesn't bode well. So for us to store straw on a spread, yeah, it's going to be a challenge, and we need to be anyone doing it needs to have their sheds well prepared and have a really good program set up to run, or else they're going to see significant damage. And obviously I just like to our inspectors that for my guys and our staff and our transport operators, snakes, obviously dishing any of the last of this old season product out, the snakes are extraordinary. So just as while we're on a safety thing, I think be well aware of that, because we've seen a lot of activity up here that just comes with mice, obviously. So yeah, but no, that's it for me. I'm quick and short. I hope you can see those photos of these lovely crops, and just you know, it's fantastic to see agriculture flying. I know we're quite back in the hay industry, and everyone's a bit doom and gloom about us at the moment, but you know, we always go up and down like this. So, and we're, you know, right at the bottom at the moment. I can only see upside from this perspective. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Cameron, any questions for Cameron? Everyone's gone quiet. I'm going to ask you a question. You just said we go up and down a bit, and we're on the down now, but the only way's up. My question to you is, how do we become a more consistent industry instead of going up and down all the time?
Oh, I think that is, I think for the lower grade products, we really struggle to shift it. Like in grain, you can always shift things. So we don't have a lot of places where we can put You know, if you look at the majority of hay that was produced in Victoria and South Australia this year, where the majority of, you know, a large percentage of hay was you know, really badly weather affected. And so there's just, if it's not a drought year, we just don't have homes for that product. And the export industry, I think, is getting a lot better. And I think they were travelling well until they've run into this China hiccup. And I've got some, you know, plenty of questions about that, you know, how those guys are going and all that sort of stuff, because we want to give growers the right signal. And I think at the moment, you know, I'm trying to be positive because we, you know, a lot of growers come into hay and then they make some hay like this and then they've got it for 2 years and it gets damaged in front of their eyes. And, you know, a lot of guys burn a lot of hay this year that they made. So it's, yeah, the ways of doing it, we need to find markets for lower grade product where it can go. That's what we've got to do to give consistency to growers and a surety to growers that even at a low price, we can shift their product where, you know, there's been a lot of product available this year. Well, growers would give it to you, you know, to take it away. But you just, there's nowhere for it, just has no liquidity. So that's the issues we have. And I work really hard on it. I'll be honest, you know, it's a passion of mine to try and help growers with that, but we need to find markets. And I think with blending, the exporters can shift stuff at times. It's just they've had a bit of headwinds at the moment, but I'll be interested in how the exporters are going, you know, because everything else is really dry. And from what I hear in places in, you know, China not using our hay, roughage prices are huge over there. So I'd be really interested in the exporters' stats and how they're looking, because every other commodity is flying. So yeah, I'd like to, you know, I wonder about that market. It's got to be strong, I would have thought. But anyway, yeah, that's my answer to that question. It's a massive work on for us with low grade product.
Thanks, Cameron. Has anyone else got any questions for Cameron?
Just a comment, make more high grade hay, I guess. That's the key.
Yeah, it's very hard, Lars, when you get the weather, mate. We'd love to have a lovely factory with a roof over the top to make it, but it's just hard, mate, to make it good every year. And it's hard to have a fantastic grain year like we're going to have and have a good hay season. The two things don't go together. You have a good hay season or a good grain season, you know, and yeah, it's just how we make it outside in the weather.
Thanks, Lars. Anyone want to offer an alternate view or suggestion? It's never too late for a good debate at 8:56.
There's a guy running a dryer up at one of the guys, Optimum, I think they used to be Prime Fibre. He's got a big dryer up there, got a heap of government money for a big dryer up there. So that's up and running again. So I'll see, good to see how that goes for those guys up there at Bundaberg.
Thanks, Cameron. Any last questions, comments, suggestions, feedback people would like to make before we run through some various last slides and wrap up the night?
Just love to hear how those export stats are going. Love to hear if you can do over the next couple of weeks, you know, give the market some positivity around how that export market's going, you know, not hearing great things. So we'd love to have some positivity there. Thanks,
Cameron. Okay, Prue, we might have our last few slides if we can, please. Excellent. So diary date for next Thursday. Thanks to Pip, those of you who are regular watchers of Landline might have seen a show recently about the potential of 3D printing. So we're pleased to feature those people next week in our forum, as well as our partner Integra and our 2 members. So we look forward to seeing you next Thursday. And just a reminder that this all culminates in Fodder Forum 5, which is AFIA's 2021 annual general meeting. Thanks, Prue. Don't forget, if you've got your camera or your iPhone be under 6, we'd love to see your photos to enter the photo competition, proudly sponsored by AgriNovatex. We've got a few coming in, but the winning photos go through into AFIA's 2022 calendar, so we'd love to see some pics. Thanks, Prue. And to be completely cheeky, to bolster AFIA's photo selection, we've been a little bit selective in our requests this year. So we're using our acronym to encourage some photos of animals, family, innovation and adaptation. So we look forward to seeing those. Thanks, Prue. Thanks to all our sponsors. As I said at the beginning, we did hope to be out in person, trip-trapping around the country. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So we've been pleased to involve a number of our sponsors tonight and as we go through the series, and you'll also get some further information from some of them with the video recording of tonight and a reminder about the events coming up. Thanks, Prue. And on that note, thank you to everyone for joining. Unless anyone wants to raise their hand with the last question, we just say thank you very much for your time tonight. We appreciate it. Welcome your feedback. Please encourage others to join us next Thursday night. But thanks, everyone. Stay safe. And my last request to everyone, please talk to your GP and get your jab, because I'm really keen to break out of Melbourne. And so the more the merrier, I say. So thanks, everyone. John, did you have a question?
No, I'd just like to congratulate everybody who participated tonight. That was a very interesting session.
Thanks, John. Appreciate the feedback. Yep. Excellent. Well, have a good night, everyone. If you haven't cracked that coffee or coldie, now might be the time. Stay safe, and we hope to see you next Thursday. Thank you and good night.
You.
Night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Seba.